What is going on? You know what time it is? Time for another history hot tip. In today's video, I'm going to be answering the question, how are wars won? Or put another way, how is military victory achieved? And I am going to attempt to answer that question by going through every major military tactic throughout history in 10 minutes. Get ready because this is going to be a fun ride. Before I get started, I want to thank our supporters for making videos like this possible. If you want to see your name at the end of videos like this, go ahead and hop on over to our support page and become a supporter today. Also, if you're new here and you enjoy learning about history in a fun, engaging way, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an exciting new video. With that being said, let's get back to history. Alright, let's dive right in, starting with one of the most popular and exciting tactics in history, Blitzkrieg, also known as the Lightning War. This tactic first came into fruition during World War II when German military commanders wanted to find a quick way to defeat their opponents without having to engage in a bloody war of attrition. In order to accomplish this, they developed Blitzkrieg, a tactic which relied on speed, surprise, and overwhelming force to quickly break through an enemy's defenses. A Blitzkrieg attack would begin with a massive aerial bombardment meant to destroy enemy airfields, supply depots, and communications centers. Then German tanks would storm across the landscape, followed by infantry who would mop up any remaining resistance. Blitzkrieg was extremely effective and allowed Germany to quickly conquer much of Europe. However, the tactic required a massive investment in resources, not to mention skilled and well-trained troops. Once those resources were depleted or the enemy adapted to the tactic, the effectiveness of Blitzkrieg began to decline and eventually it failed against the Soviet Union, marking the end of the tactic's usefulness. But while Blitzkrieg might be a thing of the past, there's another tactic that has stood the test of time: guerrilla warfare. This style of combat is as old as warfare itself. Guerrilla warfare is a form of irregular warfare in which small groups of fighters use hit-and-run tactics to harass and undermine a larger occupying force. One of the most famous examples of guerrilla warfare is the American Revolutionary War, in which colonial militias use hit-and-run tactics to wear down the British. Guerrilla warfare is especially effective when the attacking force is smaller but more flexible than its opponent. By avoiding direct confrontation, guerrillas can lure their enemies into traps, ambush supply columns, or launch surprise attacks on key installations. The tactic often requires knowledge of the local terrain and the ability to blend in with the civilian population. This makes it especially effective in places like Vietnam and Afghanistan, where the US military struggled to make progress against determined guerrilla forces. The next tactic on our list is one of the most common and historically significant forms of warfare throughout history: siege warfare. Throughout history, entire civilizations have risen and fallen based on their ability to lay and break sieges. As long as there have been armies, there has been siege warfare. This form of attack involves surrounding and isolating a city or fortified position in order to force the defenders to surrender. Sieges can be conducted by land or sea, and they can last for days, weeks, or even months. During a siege, the attackers will usually attempt to prevent the besieged from receiving supplies or reinforcements. They may also attempt to undermine the city walls or batter them with artillery fire. In order to break a siege, defenders must be able to hold out long enough for relief forces to arrive or for the attackers to become bored and move on to other targets. The next tactic on our list is one of the most recognizable and ancient forms of military organization: the phalanx. The phalanx was a military formation used by ancient Greek and Roman armies. It consisted of a dense formation of heavily armed infantry, shoulder to shoulder, with their shields locked together, forming a solid wall of overlapping bronze. The phalanx was especially effective in the early days of warfare, when most battles were fought between two opposing lines of infantry. Its main purpose was to enable the average soldier to protect himself and his comrades while advancing forward. When used effectively, the phalanx could sweep aside cavalry charges and break through enemy infantry with ease. However, the tactic was vulnerable to attacks from the flanks and rear. It also required soldiers to have a high level of discipline and coordination. Despite its limitations, the phalanx remained popular for centuries and played a key role in many ancient battles. As we move into the modern era of warfare, the next tactic on our list becomes more and more important: divide and conquer. This strategy is attributed to the Roman emperor and strategist Julius Caesar, although the concept had been known since ancient China. The idea is that instead of trying to defeat a large force all at once, it's better to divide it into smaller, weaker groups and conquer them one at a time. This tactic can be applied on the battlefield or in military strategy. For example, the Mongol army, famous for its military prowess, would often employ a strategy of divide and conquer when attacking larger armies. They would concentrate their forces against one part of the enemy ranks, breaking them and then moving on to the next section. The same strategy was also used by the British during the 7 Years' War and by Napoleon during his campaigns in Europe. No matter how or where it's used, divide and conquer is a very effective tactic, especially against disorganized or less disciplined opponents. Another tactic that has found its place throughout history is psychological warfare. Psychological warfare is the use of psychological techniques to influence the emotions, attitudes, and behaviors of a target audience. It can be used to gain a psychological advantage over an opponent during conflict. Psychological warfare can take many forms, including propaganda, misinformation, loudspeakers, radio broadcasts, leaflets, posters, graffiti, and even cyber attacks. The goal is often to demoralize the enemy, undermine their confidence, or sow discord and confusion among them. An example of psychological warfare can be seen in World War II when Allied forces dropped leaflets over Germany urging citizens to revolt against their own government. During the Cold War, both the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in extensive psychological warfare campaigns aimed at influencing the other side's population. Today, psychological warfare is commonly used in conjunction with other forms of warfare. Moving into the 20th century, we encounter one of the most brutal and devastating forms of warfare in human history: trench warfare. Trench warfare emerged as a response to the stalemate that developed between opposing forces on the Western Front during World War I. To protect themselves from enemy fire, soldiers dug a series of trenches and fortified positions that stretched for miles across the landscape. The result was a network of underground tunnels and bunkers that became home to hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Life in the trenches was miserable and dangerous. Soldiers were constantly exposed to the threat of snipers and artillery fire. They also had to contend with rats, disease, and the psychological toll of living in a state of constant tension. Despite the hardships, trench warfare proved to be an effective way to defend territory and prevent the enemy from making gains. The Western Front remained largely static for 4 years, with neither side able to break through the other's trenches. And finally, as we move into the modern era, we encounter a tactic that has come to define warfare in the 21st century: shock and awe. Shock and awe is a military doctrine that involves overwhelming an opponent with a massive display of force in order to stun and demoralize them. This tactic is typically employed at the start of a conflict in order to catch the enemy off guard and prevent them from mounting an effective defense. The First Gulf War saw the United States employ a strategy of shock and awe against Iraq. Within minutes of the start of the war, American and coalition aircraft launched a massive air assault against Iraqi targets. The goal was to destroy the Iraqi military's command and control infrastructure, as well as its air force and air defenses. The campaign was highly successful and caught the Iraqis off guard, leading to a swift victory for the coalition forces. Since then, shock and awe has become a common feature of modern warfare and interact with fans like you. Thanks for watching. But hey, if you found this video interesting, mind-blowing, or just plain awesome, do me a favor, hit that LIKE button so more people can see it. And if you love learning about history, strategy, and epic military tactics. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. We've got plenty more insane stories coming your way. Oh, and before you go, which war tactic do you think is the most powerful? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll be reading them. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay curious, stay sharp, and keep learning.